Senator Alex Antic, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Simon. I'm holding it up as
Nice.
as instructed.
Yeah,
Nice.
very good. No,
It's a good start.
Nice and close. So tell us, voting no, is that racist?
Straight off the bat, just straight into it like that. To the voice, no, it is not racist, and it should never be considered to be racist. It's we're talking about mucking around with our constitution and indeed, I think dividing Australians on race. So rejecting that doesn't sound racist to me. Doesn't sound racist at all.
Yeah, well, look, I think rejecting something that we don't have really any detail on as well, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's like we're being asked to vote for something where we don't have any detail or any of the complexities about it. We don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it underneath the surface. We've heard a few of the constitutional law experts talk about it, and the ramifications are, sort of, as you say, unknown at the moment. We now know the question. The question's pretty broad, and I just think, look, I think Aussies will reject this. Historically, you would say that referenda, I think that's right, referendums are rejected by Australians. They're pretty cautious with the document, and I think they should be.
Yeah, look, I think unless it's like something that's a real slam dunk and we have all the information that we need, that you're right. Like, referendums are very, very hard to get up, and especially when it's sort of very murky like this one is.
Yeah, and look, let's be clear. I mean, this is. We are all, I think, would imagine, worried about what's going on in remote communities and looking for solutions to that. And at the same time as Labor have pulled the cashless welfare card, which was actually working, we're now being told that a sort of strange, unknown, disparate body which is going to allow voices to speak in unison about all lots of different problems is going to somehow solve those problems. And this is not real world stuff. This is kind of
And of course, right from the start, we've known this is going to be filled with emotional blackmail. This is playbook Labor 101. The far left, the Greens, they're going to play this. If you don't vote this way, you are racist. I think the one thing that all Australians agree on is we all want better outcomes for our Aboriginal people in this country. This is not the way of doing it. And the emotional blackmail has gone that far. I've been working pretty closely with a lot of our local Indigenous leaders who would probably support some version of The Voice, but are so against this, but they don't have the courage. Well, not the courage, but they know if they do speak up, they'll be exiled from their communities. And that's the sort of part that you go, hang on, is this going to divide them even further? And
that's right. They're fighting amongst their own communities as to what this voice is supposedly going to look like. Like, if they haven't got a clear idea of what this should look like and what this should do for Aboriginal people, how the hell are the rest of Australians supposed to vote for this?
Yeah, it's spot on. And look, it's going to be interesting to see. I just, the other thing that strikes me about all of this is we've got some, actual things out there that are really problematic for people at the moment: cost of living, mortgages, inflation, you name it. And I just think politics should be talking about something else because, as you say, Simon, we're talking about things we want to help. Obviously we want, to see better outcomes in those communities, but this is not going to do it.
No, and the things you spoke about, inflation, cost of living, they're the things having a direct impact on our remote communities right now. So the voice is going to have absolutely no impact on them. And if they do, the world they're talking about is 10, 15, 20 years down the track. These things that are affecting them right now are being left behind so we can chase this left ideological stance that it makes no sense to the everyday Australian.
It looks to me like we've got a Prime Minister that is just trying as hard as he can to create something that's going to be a legacy thing. And that's really what it is. It's more about the Prime Minister and the Labor Party, I believe, than it is about Indigenous people.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't know. I don't have a feel for that, but it certainly doesn't. I don't know. It seems to have picked up a head of steam at Garma that time, and he seems to have welded himself to it. And I guess, it might well be a referendum on the Labor Party as much as it is anything. And if you're a leader, tying your wagon to that would be a real worry.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. Your party, the Liberal Party, will be having a party room to discuss this very soon. I think from a political standpoint, what we've seen right across Australia, every mainland state now is Labor. The federal government is Labor. A lot of people are saying it's because the Liberal Party has gone too conservative. I'm more of the opinion that we haven't painted a contrast in this country. People want to have strong leadership that has opinions, because at the moment it appears to me that the Liberal Party just says, oh no, we're against that, but they're not coming out with their own strong policies and making strong stances on things like saying no to The Voice or nuclear energy and these type of things that they really should be pushing hard.
Yeah, and this is a perfect opportunity, I think, and you'd know better than we would, Alex, as far as what the Prime Minister's thinking and what the actual party room might be thinking. But yeah, this is a real good opportunity to make a stand and actually stand up for some core conservative liberal values, whereas they seem to just be kind of kicking the can down the road or even following the leader on a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite reasonable. I think for Peter Peter Dutton to have asked for more details, as we were. I mean, I sort of take a personal view, and I've made it pretty clear that I don't care what the details say. We don't divide on race, and so that's my personal view. But I think it's not unreasonable to ask for more details before you come to a position, which is what's happening. So I no problem with that. As to the issue about taking a stand on things, look, I think we are best placed when we are, sort of centre-right Conservative Party. And, I think the results of the 2019 election show that. It's only 3 and a bit years ago that ground was won by speaking to people on a very values-based proposition, and the election was won on that ground. And certainly Liberal oppositions win when they're run by Conservatives, even back to Malcolm Fraser, who at that stage was sort of, I think, talking that language, even if that might not have been the way it ended up at the end. But, that's all right. But we need to get back to that. And people, look, I really mean this when I say people have got to give Peter the benefit of the doubt on this. He is pushing in the right direction, and they're going to be surprised.
Okay. Well, the conversation
and
around Peter Dutton almost emulates what it was when you go back 10 years ago around Tony Abbott. When the Liberal Party was in opposition and Tony Abbott was the leader of the opposition, people said he would never be able to get the amount of votes to form a government. Yeah. But as you said, when the Liberal Party is there and they stick to their centre-right conservative values and sell that message and are proud of selling that message, people like to follow a strong leader that does that, and they'll find those votes, particularly through rural Australia.
Well, I hope that's where we end up. Yeah. So that's my biggest fear is that we fall into that. Well, what happened to Scott Morrison towards the end, and Malcolm Turnbull before that, where they just get too much to the centre, or just try not to offend too much, and try and tiptoe their way back into power. Yeah. And that's never going to happen. If you're too much like the Labor Party, the Conservatives are going, and they are. We saw it in the New South Wales election. They're going to find other places to vote. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
you can't win elections when your Conservative side of your party is disenchanted.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's the real challenge, moving forward. And yeah, look, I just think it is always a balancing act, because the media is so hostile now, and Twitter's so hostile, and there's no doubt that the media is giving Albo a much easier run than he gave Scott Morrison. I mean, he spent huge amounts of time overseas, and when the PM of the time, Scott Morrison, did that, and he had a deputy leader left behind, and to be fair, the bushfires were not progressed as much as they ultimately did. They caught him out, they jumped on it, and they do it all over the time. So we're facing that censorship industrial complex that is the media, and it's a real enemy to our brand at the moment, and we've got to find ways to get around that and get the message out, which is why this is great. This is the future. So I think it's terrific.
I think any platform where Conservatives, and look, it's the same for people on the left too, that's how you have a good democracy, people can speak openly and freely about their values, and elections become a contest of those values rather than the fighting for the middle ground or who we can least offend. When people are having elections on their values, that's when the country is going to be its strongest.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree.
Before we started this podcast today, we'll have a look at just behind us. There's a Tesla charger on the wall. I'm not sure who owns that one.
Yes, I know you pointed out before. Yes.
I didn't know that before I turned up, by the way.
I'm guilty, but it's I didn't buy it to save the world. I bought it because it goes 0 to 103 seconds,
and I endorse that.
but it is a good conversation starter around renewable energy in Australia and how we get to a stage where reliable baseload power is going to help promote business and innovation throughout our country, because at the moment I can't see that happening.
So when's a bill going to be presented to the Senate, a private member's bill, to scrap this nuclear moratorium?
Oh, well, you're speaking my language. I actually think there was. Yeah, there was. I know of someone that was planning to do this. It wasn't me, although it should be, because I totally support nuclear power, and many do. But there was talk of that late last year, I reckon. I'm not sure if it's gone anywhere. But you're right. All that's required, in my view, my humble view, is to get out of the way. Like at the moment, there's, for people who are listening, probably aware of this, but there is There are actually two pieces of legislation. One of them's the Environment Protection Biodiversity Act. I've got that around the wrong way, which has I think it's Section 160, which has a complete and utter block moratorium on producing or generating power through nuclear energy. We just need to put a big line through that and then let the market tell us what's what, because the rest of the safeguards are there. We've got lots of safeguards there which will make this, what is safe and will be cheap power, very, very profitable.
It's just so, it's frustrated me for years. It's just so ideological. There's you look at all the advanced economies in the world that are successful and have reasonably priced energy. They have nuclear, and I just feel like, yeah, it's great. Yeah, go your hardest and try and build as many renewables as you can. But you've got to have a good base load. And if coal's evil and gas is evil, you've got to replace it with something. And that's why I think, I agree with you. We've got to get on with it and start really talking about this.
You go 2 years back, and it's when everyone was talking about this net zero, and country by country was announcing these huge emission reductions. We seem to be the only country that got the worst of both worlds. We had to go to net zero when everyone else had the nuclear grid to do it. So we were signing up for this thing that was not an even playing field, and it's going to put Australian industry on the back foot.
Oh yeah, it's okay if you're France, and 70% of your energy comes from nuclear. That's fine. France can sit there and virtue signal to all of us, but they've got in their back pocket nuclear power plants everywhere.
Nothing actually bells the cat more on the ideological position of net zero than nuclear power, in a sense. I think because it does what they want, which is reduce emissions. It can do it safely now. It's a little bit like comparing an old wind-up clock to a modern iPhone. Like, it's safe. The stuff that was breaking down Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, and even the Japanese model, Fukushima was old tech. Like, we're talking about small modular reactors or Gen 4 reactors, which now do a completely different job, and it's cheap, safe, and carbon, free, and it's still not good enough for the Greens. What's that all about?
It's interesting. I've heard the left change the discussion from the environmental stage now. Say, no, they're starting to lose that argument, and they will revert back to, the market won't have it. Well, don't let that be a decision of government, as you say. Remove the legislation and let the market decide if they want to put that baseline power in there.
Well, that's right. I've heard that argument that, but the market's not interested. They're not allowed to be interested.
Test the market.
If you're AGL or Origin, why would you investigate a technology that's illegal? If they get rid of the moratorium, and then I guarantee you'll see, it might not be from within Australia, it might be from outside, but you'll have companies come in and start doing the investigation, start doing the research.
And you're absolutely spot on. Why would you do that in circumstances where there's no future in it with a moratorium in place? I mean, the problem is that it does take a bit of a run-up as well. You can't just sort of go, we could build one over there tomorrow and have it ready for charging your Tesla tonight. We can't do that. It's got to take decades to get these things, a decade and a bit at best. So the sooner we get on with this, the better. It's inevitable, by the way. There's got to be nuclear power in our future.
Yeah, 100%. Like just when you look at how much energy we produce, how many gigawatts we produce from renewables, we are nowhere near that being able to cover our capacity. And then on top of that, you've got to go past our capacity because they don't always work.
Yeah.
So how many billions and billions of dollars are we going to spend on this? And watch all of our electricity bills go through the roof. It will, in 10, 15 years' time, we could have nuclear.
Yep. Well, we're all sold here. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's start it up. So going through the Senate next week.
We'll try it next week.
Antic,
Private members bill. Yep. We need a name. We need a hilarious, kind of name for it or something with an acronym.
Maybe someone there can suggest one for us.
I've tried that, but I'm not smart enough. So,
Alex, when we first met you, I think both you and I were sort of grinding our teeth at the local government stage. I think you were a councillor at the Adelaide City Council. You were a vice president for the Liberal Party at the time. Councils are an absolutely strange ecosystem of left ideas, I think. How did you find your time on the Adelaide City Council dealing with that sort of?
I found them a strange ecosystem of left ideas, or exactly what you said. I think you nailed it. Whatever you said. They are, and I just think it's hard to summarise in a short amount of time. But ultimately, the more sensible, common sense conservative, we would say, views we've got on local council, the better. I mean, I know you've done a stint on local government, which was good, and it's important that we have people there that have those views, because I do think that they are, perhaps not so much in the regions, but certainly in the metropolitan areas, a real little breeding ground for... Yeah, you name the issue of the day, the trendy issue of the day. I'm sure local councils will be pushing, for acknowledgements of the voice. And my first introduction to local council actually was the Rainbow Walk outside the Lion Arts Centre, and I got shouted at, which I quite liked, for all sorts of stuff, for just simply opposing the use of ratepayers' money for what was basically a political statement. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that gets legs. The push to change the date of Australia Day is another classic for local governments, not so much in the regional areas, but certainly the metropolitan city councils do it. And there's a real ability to incubate these ideas at local council. So for the next run, we need lots of people listening here, lots of good Conservatives to run and get involved, and that's across the board, by the way. I keep thinking that is depending on your professional body or your sporting club or your school. Everyone's got to repopulate the field, because I think the left has been creeping while we've been sleeping.
And we've spoken about it before on this podcast. It's the death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
You take the Australia Day issue at the moment. It's happening here at this local council, the City of Onkaparinga.
Testing the waters.
They're testing the water. They've gone out to a community survey now on how people feel about Australia Day events. Right. They were all very cautious in their debate to say, it's not about changing the date, but everything in their motion and where it's leading to is changing the date of Australia Day in localised area. And if you have council by council by council area cancelling events, council culture really should be called, then all of a sudden that changes the feel of the country. And they say, well, half the country don't celebrate it anyway. Where Conservatives, we don't tend to bring politics into local government. So where that
worried about taking out bins and putting down roads and that sort of stuff.
That's what it should be. But yeah, no, you one thing I was just going back to what you were saying about local council and how it is getting infiltrated by the left in general, especially metropolitan. Do you think it'd help if people had to identify or could run as part of a political party? Yeah. At least people then would know what they're really voting for. That's one thing I know, especially in the local elections just gone. Yeah. A lot of people that got elected, and I know people that voted for these people that had no idea what they stood for or what they were really about. They just had a nice little, comfy message.
Yep.
But
and then once you get in,
they've elected full far left people without knowing it.
Yeah, I increasingly think that, and if you'd asked me this sort of 10 years ago, I probably would have come to a different view, but I increasingly think that the kind of branding of local government elections is a good thing, because, of course, what a lot of people would do now is drop their membership. And I know that the rules require you to say if you have been one, I think, as well, don't they? A member of a party within the past 12 months. So if you're really, really, sort of on it, you'd quit 12 months in advance, and off you'd go, and you'd never know. Now you might say, well, what's the difference? But I do think it would be helpful. I think putting aside the arguments of 3 layers of government and all that sort of stuff, I think if we're going to have state and federal, politically aligned elections, why not just do local as well? I think we're heading that way probably. In this state, it's different in other states.
Well, you could even time the elections at the same time to save money. With the state elections every 4 years, it's held on the same year.
I think we're the only state now, or mainland state, that is the case. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure even Western Australia now have to identify as a party.
It gets highlighted immensely at the annual left feast of the Local Government Association annual event in Canberra.
Yeah.
I've gone along 2 years, and you see all the mayors standing up from the eastern states who happen to be all wearing their red dresses or wherever it might be, highlighting very much that they're part of the Labor Party. The eastern states all along party lines at those things vote with their hands up, where South Australia to an extent and WA still vote pretty independently, but it puts us at a disadvantage when we're trying to get things through, because they just vote in block numbers. And because we're voting independently and just on the issue, what do we actually think with our own morals, it counts for nothing.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. But I hadn't thought that through.
Yeah. I just thought I'd put it to you. I mean, I've talked to Simon about it at length, but but you're obviously Adelaide City Council, so I was just interested to see what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I think it's mirrored in it.
While we're on controversial topics, I've had 3 vaccinations so far for COVID. I've had COVID twice. It hasn't stopped me getting COVID. Mandates, where are we sitting within South Australia and your views around how mandates and these things can come on really quickly. There's still a few sitting there that probably need to be lifted.
Yeah, there definitely are. I think they're all bar. I think the nurses still have healthcare, allied health. I think still have some, but I think I'm right about that. But certainly a lot of private businesses are still doing it. It's just, this is madness. People look. I mean, it's no secret to know that I think, knowing particularly what we know about the ineffectiveness of these injections regarding transmission, this was sort of sold. The mandates themselves were sold on the basis that you're protecting someone else, which you never were. We knew that a long time ago, but it seemed to be that from the start. Yeah, but the kind of the media complex and the whole lot just conspired to sort of not tell that story. We now know it, but that story's now changed, and we heard it in. I think Senator Ralph Babbitt from the UAP asked that question of Katie Gallagher, who was acting health minister in the Senate a month ago, and that narrative has sort of changed now to, yes, but you're stopping people from going to hospital and all this. So look, the whole thing's a nonsense. People shouldn't be forced into taking anything they don't want to. It's completely immoral, and I just think they need to end.
It's incredible though, like with all this we've been through over the last few years. Lots of people still die of COVID, like they do everything else, right? But we're not reporting the numbers. We're not, because we can't report the numbers anymore, because that'll go against the narrative that if we all get vaccinated, we're all going to be somehow safe and everything's going to be okay. It's just, it's quite perplexing.
It's got a long way to go. I mean, I'd really, truly believe we're going to be talking about this for decades, and it's a sad thing because it should be in the past. But look, it was a very unfortunate time that we don't want to go back to ever again. I've got to say, on a whole range of levels, but certainly forcing people to do stuff is bad news.
I think it's a great example of all governments, whether they're left or right now, that they fail to acknowledge when they've made a mistake, and this would have been a great example where it could happen, because any government, I think in the very early days of COVID, would have been excused for making some pretty quick decisions. That they didn't know where this is going. There wasn't much data in on either side of any argument. But the longer this went on, the more inexcusable these type of things became, because the data was becoming more and more clear. We knew that having a vaccination would not stop you passing it on to someone. So then why would you take someone's freedom of choice of their own medical procedures with their own body? Taking that right away is a significant power that you are bestowing on your country or your state or whoever's making that as a decision maker. When that data became clear that it wasn't you passing on, saving, then that's when they should have said, hey guys, we put this in originally, data's in now, we're going to start to lift it. But governments now, they can't really admit when they're wrong. They get locked into a position, and the media will lock them into that position. It'll be that gotcha moment, and there's no flexibility to change.
Yeah, I think some of the media as well are not. I mean, you have to remember, some of these media outlets push this as much as anyone. We all remember the various ads on TV with this being championed, and the newspapers that were pushing this line relentlessly. So I still think there's a lot of skin in the game here. It's a little bit before people start eating humble pie and telling them they got it wrong, because they did.
Do you think they ever will?
I don't know. I think it's going to be a while. I mean, people don't want to have to do that backtrack, and they're still in those positions.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think, because I think we're 10 years away from people looking back and going, that was the stupidest period of time known to man.
Yeah, right.
And because most of those people won't be in positions of power by then. Yeah. And it's going to come.
Yeah, I think it will. And look, I mean, we can see other examples. I mean, if you look at the examples of other health-related issues that have become known, it's always down the track. So, look, I think that's probably the case. And the hysteria has died down now. The question is, what's next? What are we going to get next? Some of the stuff that I'm worried about are some of the social control type mechanisms, the social credit system building. We probably don't know if we've got time for all of those, digital currencies, the surveillance state. This is the stuff now that's easily categorised as conspiracy theories, but it's happening.
It does sound conspiratorial, but it really happened. We had a couple of years of trial run of that, basically, and I think unfortunately a lot of governments, when they get a trial run at that and they go, oh, that works, and we've got a bit of power over people, we've got control over their self-determination.
And you've got to remember, I mean, if we talk about the kind of surveillance state type mechanisms, in this state we had the digital, what was it called, the the home detention app or whatever it was, the home quarantine app. Sorry, it was the Freudian side of my brain that got it, which was for your phone. I don't know how much it got widely used, but for your phone, and it would ring you if you were meant to be at home with COVID. You would ring you 3 times a day, and if your photo didn't correlate with your GPS data, then the cops would come and knock on your door. And I mean, that's straight out of the CCP playbook. So we've already done it. We're already down that path, and that's frightening.
You can't say, but did you use that app?
No, and I was never afforded the option.
I was
at Her Majesty's pleasure. Yeah, I was at Her Majesty's pleasure. Yeah.
I forgot that.
Never got it.
It's a scary thing too, isn't it? Because even some people, from some people on the right who were elderly, thought at the time, these things had to happen. The thing is, though, that technology is there now, and once that cat is out of the bag, where does it stop? And you can say, "Oh no, we won't do it as a government," but you're not going to stop the next government or the next government. It's that slippery slope.
Oh yeah, the QR code thing, the whole thing.
What could that be used for? Is a scary.
I mean, look at all the businesses now that use QR codes for lots of things now.
That's really the QR code's been the big winner out of this, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge.
Oh, the QR codes before COVID was his most... But you see them now being used for some absolutely crazy stuff. I saw a newsletter the other day, which was a digital newsletter, that you had to QR code to go to brought up a link that you could click on the link. I thought it was a digital thing. You could just had to put the link there to start with. It's just this QR codes have become trendy.
We got a QR code for this?
I think we can get it organised.
All right, let's do that right now.
No, but well, it's the same. Like you go to the cricket or the footy. QR code, for your tickets. It's it's everywhere. You can't escape
menus
it.
at restaurants now, or everything.
Right. You can sit there and order
from the table. Yeah,
QR code.
There's a lot of good stuff. I mean, I think that's great. That's a good use of technology, but making people do it when they walk into a shop, that's bad. No.
Yeah. That's surveillance. Basically.
How about at a bit more of a personal level now? You're in your second term in government. Your first
second
tenure.
Parliament. Yeah. So
second Parliament.
Yep.
You'll be coming up for re-election next election.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
You're going for pre-selection, all those fun things that you have to go through.
Yeah, that's democracy for you. It's a real drag.
It is. I think one of the things that I know Luke and I have been sort of following your career the whole way through. I think one of the things that stood up really strong is if there's an impending election, and if all the politicians we know, you wouldn't be able to tell because you're more than happy to say things will not be popular, to stick up for your own values, and that's something we're not seeing too much in politics anymore. So I think you probably should be commended more than you are on.
Yeah, well, that's very nice of you to say that. I have a real problem with keeping my mouth shut when I don't like something. It's a real issue. But look, I mean, I just think on a
conviction politics.
Yeah. Hopefully it is because that's what it is. I mean, it's an interesting world, politics, because I think there is always a temptation to go, that's a bit hard, I don't want to touch it. And I just feel like, particularly when we've been through what we've been through, some of the stuff we've talked about with COVID, ultimately, when you're older and you say, well, you were afforded the privilege of being there, and it is a privilege, like complete and utter privilege. What did you say about that? And did you try? Did you do something? And so it's sort of that. You don't want to leave any stone unturned. And I think we're in really difficult times, geopolitically and domestically, and it just would be I just think it's unconscionable to sit there and just say nothing. We've got to try. And look, some people won't like it, and some people do, but it's sort of, we're meant to be a contest of ideas.
It's just it's real unfortunate that there aren't enough politicians like that, like yourself. I mean, you've got guys like Matt Canavan that wears his heart on his sleeve and just calls a spade a spade. Barnaby Joyce as well. Yeah. Even Pauline does the same thing, but there's not many. Well, you could name them on one hand.
I think the media have made it a bit of a danger sport, and I think it's a situation of the bark being worse than the bite. Honestly, I think there is such a groundswell of people, everyday, normal, sensible people that are kind of with us, I think, that it's really not a danger sport at all. I reckon
they're quite Australians.
They're quite Australians. Like, I mean, people, and we get it every day at the office, just cascades of emails saying, look, just I agree with that. And we don't actually get as much abuse as we would like. Probably there'll come some from this. If I've invited it, there'll be more abuse. But I haven't actually invited it, but I just, it is, I just think we have to have the courage of knowing that there's lots of people who are kind of just wanting to do normal stuff and wanting to pay bills and raise kids like we all are. And if we can't say that out loud and worry about, whether or not it's going to be a headline on Radio National, well, who cares? I mean, we're only in it for a short time.
Yeah, no, and that's the trouble is, and it happens on both sides of politics. You've got a whole heap of politicians that just look like cardboard. You know, they're playing it safe the whole way, and it's not very exciting.
Well, we need to bring excitement back to politics.
We do. We need those conservative voices. You know, as we said before, this nation now is controlled by the Labor Party and the Greens, basically, as a coalition. Yeah. Now, state by state, I mean, Tasmania, people might have more population moving to Tasmania at the moment, but the only state that's not under Labor control.
The Free State.
the irony. But the importance of having people in the parliament that can actually call this stuff out, because they're going to be emboldened now. With these victories, they become arrogant, and that's just the way they will always run. Yep. And now they'll be emboldened to put some policies forward that we haven't even thought of yet. And if we don't have the people in the places to call it out and are brave enough to speak truth to that, then the country's going to be in a pretty bad place. So it's good to have those voices.
We need more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of, always.
Just onto another thing, Alex. What are your thoughts about what's going on in the United States at the moment? Did you are you very across that?
Yeah, look, I try and stay across American politics a bit. I find it interesting. Probably, I'm sure you guys do as well. I know you guys do. I know we've talked about it. So I am pretty interested in American politics, and it is a real worry actually across the board. Depending on where you sit, the fractures and divides in that country are a real worry when they are greatest ally, really. That worries me a lot. So, and of course, I think today's the day that 45, President Trump is being indicted, I think. I haven't caught up on it yet, on what's happened, but it's, you know, I just do worry that these divisions are going to get worse.
No, I guess they're probably in a worse place than where we are. But I guess the worry is, you know, what usually happens there slowly happens here. So,
I think we have a lot of that style of politics has become, infected in Australian politics. Yeah. You can always tell when something's coming in our chamber with the Greens when you see a movement happening in the US's left. You know it's coming.
Yeah, right.
And I used to say this would take 20 years ago it would take a year, 2 years, and now with social media and it's instantaneous.
What's that old saying, isn't it? When America sneezes, Australia catches the cold.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's probably more true on the left than so more so on the right.
I think it is.
With social media, but as you said,
movements going on over there. Whether it was Black Lives Matter or whatever.
We had it instantly, didn't we? Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So suddenly this is a thing here.
Yeah. And as you said this morning, 45 flew out of Florida and he's landed in New York.
Trump Force One.
Trump Force One. Yeah. Geez, that's a nice plane. But it's going to be interesting to see how that.
Himself.
Well, how's it going to? What's the end point in this game? Because $150,000 indictment charge in the scheme of federal politics and money is a very small misdemeanor. For a former president to be charged, I think he'll probably be convicted because at the end of the day, he did do it. No one's going to deny it. He probably paid money to still be dangerous.
Yeah. But I mean, it's hard to know without. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but his lawyer did time for this. His lawyer was convicted for this, so so it's sort of like I'm looking at why are they going after him now? So they're going after him. It's a political hit job, basically. And I think even Democrats or people of the left, as much as they may despise Trump, really, you look at it rationally. It's a political hit job.
It's worrying. It's worrying stuff to do this, I reckon, and I think it'll backfire. I think this is really belling the cat on, as you say, on what is. And I don't know the details about it either. I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of American law apart from anything else. But my understanding is that this was considered by federal prosecutors and Democrats years ago and dropped because they were worried about the prospects of a conviction or whatever. Yeah. It's just weird that it would come up now, in this time frame. And
I guess all the primary stuff starting to
maybe.
Up, and it's kind of.
And I just wonder whether this is about damaging donors and that sort of stuff. Look, I don't know. Well, none of us know, but I do know that it's going to be. I'm very confident this is not going to work in the manner it was intended, if that was the case.
Well, I don't know if you are aware, but as far as donors are concerned, he reaped in $5 million yesterday.
Yeah. I think that's what I mean. It may backfire.
Yeah. I'm thinking if anything, people with a few bucks over there might reach further into their pocket from it.
That's right.
Yeah, and the man knows how to play to a crowd. Getting on his Trump Force One was something he probably didn't need to do, but he knew where the media would be. He's doing these press conferences for it. His money would grow. I'm a DeSantis man myself. I'd like to see a DeSantis president.
Yeah, look, I would as well. I think lots of things I like about Trump, but I think he had his time. I would like to see someone younger, fresher. Ron DeSantis. That's who I'd like to see too. But regardless of that, how the Democrats over there are going about basically trying to knock Trump out of the race is disgraceful.
Yeah, you'd have to be worried about that. It's not a good look.
It's not the way things should happen in a proper democracy.
No. Perfect. Well, Senator Antic, thanks for joining us today, mate.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me. And this is great. Yeah, now we'll come back at some stage if I'm invited.
We'd like to have you back. We'll take you for a ride in the Tesla. We'll see you.
Yeah, that's quite a scene. That is quite a scene. I would like to. I reckon I with you. I reckon they're great cars.
Yeah, they are great cars. But I mean, I'm a realist. They're not going to save the world.
No, then I don't want to know about it.
Champions. Thanks, mate.
That's good. Thanks, guys.